Resume recording. Okay, awesome. So today what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over basically setting up kind of how to simulate making a digital version of a softground print. And so Clark is on here with me, and he's going to ask any questions. We're going to be using, I'm going to talk about how you can get different sources for your images. I've scanned a bunch of images, but I'm also going to go through how to scan images. But you can also get images from your cameras as well, or your camera phones. I'm going to go over image resolution, how you can edit your scanned drawing or your scanned print, textures, layers, and transparency, colors, and then finally masking. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, cool. So do you have access to a scanner, Clark, or no?
Yeah, but it's like 11 by 14.
Okay, that's fine. That's big enough. Because your prints are smaller than 11 by 14, and my scanner is actually about 11 by 14. So if you're running a PC, you definitely want to open your scanner software. So for me, that would be like Epson this ES0151. But I use a Mac. So the way I always open my Mac or get files or images from a scanner or from like an HDMI card, or if I've plugged in my camera, is I always use image capture. So are you using a Mac? You use a PC, right, Clark?
Yeah.
So you just want to use your scanner software, and you'll want to make sure your firmware is updated, whether you use a Mac or a PC. I had to go through and update all my firmware this morning. So anyway, I'm going to start out and click overview. I've already got my objects on the scanner bed. And so I'll kind of go through these settings here on the right. And I'm going to change the beads so they're not overlapping. So, all right, so I'm going to hide the details. A lot of times when you open up your scanner application or software, it'll look something like this. And so I always look for a button that kind of implies that it's going to give you more information. And for my program, it's show details, because that's going to allow you to go through and select your image resolution. I usually don't mess with the image correction, but you can. You can go in and do like manual image correction, but for now I'm just going to do none, because I'm fine with how that image looks. And Clark, if you have any questions as I'm going along, just interrupt me, okay?
Okay.
So for your image resolution, and I'll go through this when I open a file in Photoshop. So you got to think about where your output is going to be. If your output is web viewing, then 150 DPI is plenty. So you could scan it in at like 200. If you potentially would want to print these onto archival paper and print them at the size that they are currently getting scanned, then you would want to scan it in at 300 DPI to get a decent quality for printing. Over here, you can select your destination for your files, which I've already done that, but you can go through and pick out where you want your files to go. And these are all the images that I scanned earlier, so it's already chosen. And then here you can name it. So I'm just going to do netting beads. Is that spelled right? Looks weird. All right. And then I've already done the overview, so I will go and I'll select the area. So I'm clicking and dragging my mouse here, and then I'm going to click scan. And so that's going to scan that. That'll take it just a moment. Do you have any questions so far, Clark?
No, I already cropped my images, so to make them not, so yeah.
Do you already have all your images scanned?
I need to scan one more and I'm done after that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and I wanted to show this just in case some other folks, a cat just jumped on the table, just in case other folks haven't scanned their images yet. And a lot of people may not even have access to a scanner. They may be using their photographs on their phone. If you are using your phone, you can do, hold on, what's it called? You can do AirDrop, which if you click on here, hold on, search, AirDrop, right here. You can go to your AirDrop settings on your computer, which it should pop up in a second. And you can see it says my iPhone there. So like I have a picture of my dog on my phone, and I can go to AirDrop on my phone and select my computer. And if you have a Mac and a iPhone, you can do it this way. I'm assuming there's a way you can do it with a PC and an Android, but also if you have a cord for your phone, you can plug it into your computer. I just know that some of the newer computers are all cloud and don't have USB drives, so you might have to use like some sort of Bluetooth connection, but there are ways to get images off of your device onto your computer. Also, if you have images on your phone, you can put them onto Google Drive. You can email them to yourself to access them from your computer. There's lots of different ways. This is a really big image, so I'm going to give that a moment to upload. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm done with image capture. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then while that image is uploading to AirDrop, I'm going to go ahead and open some of my images in Photoshop. So I'll go to open. And let's see here. Thought maybe, I think that already popped in there. If I go to downloads. Yeah, so that's my image that I just put in there. You can see today at 10:09 a.m. So it just pops up in your downloads on your computer. So if you have a iPhone Mac situation, that works. And I'm actually just going to cancel this because I've got this folder open here. And I'm going to just select all of these files here. Or let's start. So I scanned my 4 toilets here. These are like my 4 state proofs. And I'm trying to decide which one I want to open. I think I'm going to open number 1 and number 4. And you can control open with Photoshop. And so you guys, if you have a drawing in your sketchbook, you probably don't have these arrows on top of your drawings. And then if you have a proof of it, if you do have these arrows on there, I'm going to show you how to clone stamp to get rid of it, because I drew, of course, with a big Sharpie marker instead of like a pencil. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just change tools here and select just the move tool. I use a lot of key commands. I tend to be more keyboard intuitive, but you can use the selection tools as well by going select all, but Command A is the key command. And then I'm going to do Command T to transform, but you can do edit free transform as well. And so I'm going to take my mouse, hover it just outside the corner, and rotate this so that it's at roughly a right angle. And then Command D to deselect, or you can go select, deselect, okay? And yeah, and Command plus, Command minus to zoom in and zoom out, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna select all, Command A, Command C to copy, which is edit copy. And then I'm gonna go here, Command V to paste, or you can do edit, paste. Am I going too fast, Clark?
No.
Okay. Now over here on the right side, you can see my panels here. My layers is kind of down here at the bottom. I'm going to try to move this up. I don't really need that to be that big. I'm going to trying to make this smaller, or move that there. on that. There we go. Move that up a little bit so I can actually see it. Okay, so you can see now I've got 2 separate layers. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is make this layer line up with the other layer as close as possible. That way I can selectively let part of it sort of be visible compared to the other one if I want. And kind of looking at the 2 layers, I think I kind of like this bottom layer more. And I think there's an easier way to deal with that. So I'm not going to worry about that, actually. I'm going to save that in case I need it. So I'm just going to turn that off for now. So on this background layer, I'm going to double click it so that it's not locked anymore. So you see that little lock disappeared. I'm going to add another layer and use this for my clone stamping where I need to deal with the line situation, okay? Now you guys might not have to do this, and if not, that's fine, but I'm gonna select my clone stamping tool. I'm gonna go up here and sample current and below, otherwise it's not gonna have any pixels on that layer. So now it'll pull from the pixels on the layer below. Generally, I like my hardness to be around 50 to 60% when I'm doing clone stamping. So I'll change that right there. And I usually keep my opacity up to 100%. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to option click to define the area. Option click to define. So it's basically copy paste. So when I hold down the option key and click, that's saying copy this spot right here where my mouse is. And then when I move my mouse, it's going to paste where that little plus sign is. So if I keep going, it's going to paste something I don't want, right? I don't want that there. So I'm going to Command Z to undo. I'm going to option click to redefine my start point and then move it over to paste it, okay? I'm gonna zoom in so I can get some details here. Now, you see how, Clark, you see how I've got this edge right here and I maybe don't wanna go past the edge of the toilet seat?
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the polygonal lasso tool and I'm gonna select an area, because by selecting this area here, that means that I can go back and select my clone stamp tool and only work within this area. So I'm gonna option click and I can define anywhere, but when I go to stamp it, it's not gonna stamp outside of that box. And then I'll deselect. So I'm gonna go back and use my lasso tool again. I'm gonna select inside of the inner edge of the toilet seat. And then I'm gonna use my stamp tool. I'm gonna option click to select something white, and then click in there, and then Command D to deselect. So I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool to go through here and select out the areas that I want to clean up and get rid of the arrows, and then stamp, option click, option click, option click, deselect, polygonal lasso. You have any questions so far, Clark?
No, just writing down notes.
Okay. And again, I'm recording this so you can go back and watch it later if you want. All right. So and I just hit the letter S on the keyboard, not Command S, just the letter S, and that will automatically give me the stamp tool. Option click. Option click. Computer's kind of slow on the uptake today, like me, probably like all of us this time of morning on a Saturday where it's gray out. All right, so almost done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to more. I'm gonna pause the recording for just a moment while I do this editing, and then I'll start the recording again. Okay, we're back. So I finished editing the clone stamping, and zooming in, I'm going to fix this here. All right, so we've got our image scanned, and so I'm going to go to, in Photoshop, I'm going to go to image size to check out my image resolution. You can see it's at 300, scanned in at the actual size of 6 by 8 inches. Now, let's say if I had wanted to print this out at 11 by 14, I would have wanted to scan it in at a higher resolution. If I had scanned it in at, say, 600, then I could double the size of the image. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Now, if I did want to print it out a little bit, I could uncheck resample, probably change it to 200 and get away with printing it out like 10 by 11. But for now, I'm just going to keep it at 300, which is fine. So give that a second. It's not really changing anything. Okay, so I'm happy with the clone stamping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the shift key, select these two layers, right click that, and merge these two layers. Merge layers. Okay, and we'll just call this toilet. Okay, now if you'll notice that I proofed this on newsprint, right, Clark? So
Yes.
I probably want to edit my scanned drawing or print at some point for a couple of different reasons. Like if I want to put this in front of other textures, I don't want this to be an opaque layer of information where the paper is. So what I'm going to do is, first off, before I do anything to edit this, I'm going to duplicate the layer, okay? And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to edit out some of this information, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to select this color by going select color range. And I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to select that. Now I can hold down the shift key if I want to select a couple different places in that same area. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. We'll see how that does. Now, I'm not going to cut that away. I'm not going to get rid of it because that's destructive editing. I'm actually going to go over here and add a mask. Okay, I'm going to turn the background off. Now, I'm going to go here to my mask. I'm going to do Command I to invert that mask. Okay. One other thing I'm going to do so I can see this better is I'm going to add a layer, drag that layer to the bottom, and I'm going to take my paint bucket and fill it with white so I can see that a little bit easier. So I pull that all the way down to the bottom there, not into the mask. Yeah, stupid. Okay. So if I turn this layer off and on, we can see it looks pretty much the same, okay? So I'm pretty happy with that. One thing I didn't do before I did that though was I didn't adjust the levels. So I'm actually going to, I'm going to turn that off real quick. I'm going to duplicate this layer again and do it one more time, but I'm going to adjust the levels on it first. So I'm going to go to adjustments, levels. It's probably not going to make a huge difference just because it was scanned. So I'm going to see, yeah, and the levels look good, so I'm actually not going to worry about that. So I'm happy with that. So we'll go ahead and delete that. Okay, so we don't need the levels, so we'll get rid of that. All right, so we've got our edited toilet layer, and I put that white background behind it just so I could see what I was doing a little bit better. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some of these other files of textures. I created, I scanned some feathers. Got two different files. I think I like the density here. So let's see here. Got that. I scanned map cards because I didn't know how that would look. There's the netting and the beads. There's some netting there. The netting might look kind of cool like in the background there, and I scanned the plate too. I don't think I'm going to use that. Those are my testers of softground, so I think I'm going to definitely open that up. So I think what I'm going to open up is the testers, the netting, and this feathers. Okay, so in the classroom, if we were at school continuing the intaglio process with softground, we would be etching different layers into an intaglio plate. And the thing that's wonderful about the intaglio plate is that you can stack textures onto different heights and surfaces and depths of the intaglio plate. So you can have a line etch that's cut really deeply into the plate, but then higher up on the high point, you can have the soft ground texture. And then you can have another soft ground that's etched deeper into the plate. So even though we're not completing this in a physical manner, we can still layer our properties together using Photoshop to somewhat mimic our soft ground layers. So if we're looking at like this tester plate here, for example, if I go here, I'm going to double click my background layer to unlock it. Let's say I find a texture that I'm interested in using. And so we've got this sort of the lacy texture that could be used, this grid texture, or maybe this cardboard texture. So what I could do here to start out is pull something. Sorry, that's my email going off. So I can go here and I'm going to go copy, and then I'm going to take a new layer, we'll say textures, and then I'm going to paste it in there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first layer and select here. I'm going to copy and then a new layer, and we'll say grid texture, and then I'm going to paste it in there. We'll call this one lace texture, and then we'll go back to the original one and we'll select it, and I'm just using that polygonal lasso tool. We're going to copy, Command C, add a new layer, cardboard texture, and then I'm going to paste it in there. So I'm going to turn the original off. So we've got these 3 different textures, okay? So turn these off here. So I'll just kind of show you on this one, okay? So I've copied it. I could paste it again, and start just using my copy paste situation. I could Command T, transform, to start piecing things together, hitting the enter key. So I could use something like this. So I'll go ahead and construct something in this manner to build up some textures. Copy paste. You have any questions so far, Clark?
Do you want us to have like a separate photo sheet layer from our image then?
Photoshop layer, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, have like different, have like a
Yeah.
layer of the texture and then.
Yes. So when you turn this in, you're going to turn it in as a Photoshop document, and you'll have all your layers as separate. Is that answering your question?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but see, like, look how many layers I have right now. I have lots of layers. So I'm not going to turn this in with all these layers. So watch what I'm going to do, because I'm clicking this, and then I'm holding the shift key and clicking a second layer. So if we look over here in the layers, do you see how I have 4 and 5 selected at the same time?
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy and paste, and see how it's copy and pasting 2 of those, right? So I'm going to go back and hold the shift key and select both of those. Now this guy over here is already reversed, number 1. So I'm going to copy paste that one. And now I'll select that one and hold the shift key, and 8 and 1 are grouped. So I'm going to copy and paste those 2. You see how I'm doing that, Clark?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than doing each one individually. I'm going to paste it again. So I have lots and lots of layers, but this is very temporary, because I don't want to have a bajillion layers in this file while I'm working. You know, that's going to drive me bonkers. And then I'm going to copy and paste this one last little guy. Okay. Now I'm going to try to select, I'm going to hold down the shift key and select all of these guys. So I'm holding down the shift and clicking. I'm going to move those guys over. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, it's kind of going down diagonally. So I'm going to select these 2. Move them over a little bit. So what I'm doing essentially is just trying to get a layer. Now, if I want to keep all these guys separate, I can. So I'll show you how you could do that, like by making a group. And you probably remember this from digital imaging, Clark. We did
Yeah.
grouping of the layers. So if you want to group your layers, you can, and that gives you more options in the future. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these layers here, and then I'm going to right click or control click if you're on a laptop and group from layers, and I'm going to call it cardboard. It said mode. I don't know why that said pass through. Mode is normal. So I don't know why it said that. Make sure you change your mode is normal. All right, so now I can turn it off and on all at once, right? So, all right, so I've got this cardboard textury layer, but I still have them separated and it's grouped all nice together, okay? So visually it's not too complicated, but I can still go in and select that one and move it closer and select this one right here and use my arrow keys and move it closer so that there is no negative spaces in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I can still go here. Let's go here. I'm going to take my clone stamp tool and I'm going to option click here. And then you see how there's little gaps in here? So I'm going to option click and then go in here and fill in the gaps. And option click and fill in the gaps. See?
Okay.
So I'm going to zoom in and fill in a few of these gaps. So I'm going to option click, fill in the gaps, option click, fill in the gaps, option click, fill in the gaps. Okay? Option click, fill in the gap. Oh, I don't like that. Option click, fill in the gap. Not awful. Option click, fill in the gap. All right. And then, all right, cool. So now we've got this together. So I'm going to go back over here, hit the arrow to reduce it. I've got my file, my toilet soft PSD file that I saved earlier. So I'm going to go back to my tester. I'm going to grab this cardboard layer, click, drag, and then I'm going to pull it over here, drop it in the middle, and then there it is in this file here. Now, do you notice how it gets smaller? Do you know why it got smaller, Clark?
Because of file size or?
That's exactly right. I'm not going to save this because my tester plate physically is smaller in size than my toilet plate. So if I were to make this bigger, I'm going to lose resolution on my cardboard. So all I got to do though is, oops, fancy here. What I'm going to do instead of trying to make it bigger is I'm just going to duplicate some of the layers like I did a second ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So go here to my groups, and I'm just going to go click, shift, copy, paste. I think I might have accidentally turned that guy off. I think that's okay. We'll throw him in the garbage. That's okay. There we go. All right. Transform. I think I did all of them. I did most of them. That's okay. And then I'm going to select that one and that one and copy paste again. Wait, no. We're going to do that. This is where it gets really confusing. Hold on. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this real quick. Turn these off real quick. So turn that off. Okay. So I'm going to do this one and this one, copy paste. There we go. So again, that's the advantage of having them in the group still, is you can select parts of them. So now I'm going to go here, hold down the shift key, click the bottom row, copy paste. And then if I do Command T, we can see this group. and move it down there and hit enter. So, all right, so now I need to look at all these layers, right? It's crazy, all these crazy, crazy layers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to all these extra layers that I've added here. I'm holding down the shift key and I clicked to select all of them. And I'm gonna click and drag them into the cardboard layer and then hit that arrow. So now they're all on the same layer, okay? Now I'm going to move it up so it goes off the page. And I just did Command T, use the arrow keys, and then hit enter. Do you have any questions so far, Clark?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to delete some layers that I don't need. So this toilet copy 2 and toilet are the same. So I'm going to delete one of those. This is my original one. I don't need that anymore because I've edited it. So I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to put it in the very back, turn them off. And then this is, so now where I've edited, so we've got that original file that I did not edit, and then this file that I edited. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Ooh, thank you. Because I cut out all the negative space in the drawing, I can see this through here. All right. So we've got layers. So you could do this with your scanned. So if you have a soft ground tester, you can take your soft ground tester proof and do what I did, where I just selected my favorite part of the soft ground tester and I duplicated it and copy and pasted it to create a layer. Okay.
Okay.
Now, one thing I didn't do that I could have done in those duplications was I didn't change the size of any of these. So, for example, I could have made some of them smaller. You know what I mean? I kept them all the same size. So feel free to change the sizes of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you make them bigger, you're going to lose image resolution, just as a heads up. Now, just like I did that on that one, I can do the same thing on the netting. I can take the netting and, you know, I edited my drawing. I can go to select color range, select this negative space. I'm going to hold down the shift key, select some more negative space, hit OK. I'm going to make my layer, not a background layer, and then I'm going to add a mask, and I'm going to Command I to invert my mask. And so I lost that background information, okay? And then I can click and drag this to my file and drop it in the middle of my file. And you can see this one's quite large, okay? So we've got another layer that we can play with. All right. So I think we'll just use these two for now. I think that's all we need. I'm not going to save that because I've got it in this file now, so I don't need it. I'm going to go here. I'm just going to close the feathers out. If I did want to use these, I could go, I don't think I'd do select color range on this one to edit out my background and for the mask. I'd probably use the magic wand tool, and you can play with your tolerance. So let's try. And then you can put your mask on there and invert your mask. Yeah, that's not too bad. And the thing you can do with your masking, if you want to or need to, like you see how it took out some of the feather information there, Clark?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put I like to put a layer behind it so I can see. So I'm painting paint bucket behind it. So I'm gonna option click so I can see my mask. So I'll click on my mask there, take my paintbrush, black blocks, and white reveals. So I've got my white selected on my paintbrush. I'm on my paintbrush, okay? I'm on there, my softness is at 0. I'm going to change my opacity to 100. And then I'll option click so you can see it. And you can do it this way too if you want. So you can go back and edit your mask to make adjustments, to make corrections. Does that make sense, Clark?
Yeah.
Let me turn that smoothing off. I don't want that on. And so like this guy right here. But I might not want to play with the very, very edge because I kind of like how the very edge of it looks, you know? Or I might decide, you know what? That looks kind of cool right there, right? Maybe I decide I'm going to block, because black blocks. Maybe I decide I'm going to block this part out right here. And I really like how this guy looks, you know? Like just this element right here, you know? It's actually, that's pretty cool for something that could mimic a soft ground effect. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's something that could be useful. Now, if I did want to use this, I would definitely want to go ahead. Once I was done, you can delete your mask. Oh, wait. Deselect. Go here. Apply the mask. And then you can go through and select it and copy. And then I can go in here and paste it into this file. So I'm going to save that because I'm going to show you guys some stuff that we could do with that too. So we'll call this a feather. Do you have any questions so far, Clark?
No, not yet.
Okay. So at this point, you know, basically what we're mimicking is, you know, this is our hard ground line etch, right? Which actually, this is our hard ground line etch. So I'm just going to call this hard ground line etch toilet. We'll call this soft ground feather, right? Because this is mimicking a soft ground feather etched into a plate. We'll call this soft ground netting. And then we'll call this soft ground cardboard. Okay, so we've done layers. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is masking, okay? Because let's start with this. We'll do the netting first, okay? So when you're working with your soft ground on your plate, Clark, so you roll the soft ground onto your metal plate, right?
Yeah.
And then you lay the netting onto the soft ground and you run it through the printing press, right?
Yes.
And so you have an impression of a texture on your entire plate, right?
Yes.
But let's say I only want this netting to etch into the background. So what would I want to do? Do you remember what I would want to do if I were etching it before I put the plate into the acid bath? You know where I would want to paint my stop out?
On air, like on the toilet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the donut, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of painting my stop out, I'm going to paint my mask. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the toilet off for a second. So I have this mask on here already. And in order to not be confused, I'm going to go ahead and apply this mask. Okay. So I'm going to trash the mask. It'll say apply. Okay. All right. So now I've got this mask is on here. So I'm going to turn my toilet back on. I'm going to select this layer here and I'm going to turn it off. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the toilet. I'm going to try the magnetic lasso and see how that works. So I'm clicking and then I'm just dragging the mouse slowly and it clicks for me. Periodically, I will click, like when I get to a corner right here where I change direction, I'll click. And then I'll click. And I think I'm gonna mask out the donut also. So I'm gonna click. Click. Do you have any questions so far, Clark?
No.
So I'm gonna do, I'll go back and get that other part in a second. All right, I'm gonna hit enter. So that's selected all of that. So this is background right here. So I'm gonna hold the Option key so that this part is not selected. So that will deselect this area. And then I need to hold down the Shift key so that I can also select this area here. Okay, I'm gonna use my polygonal lasso to refine a little bit of that. I'm gonna hold down the Shift key and select just a little bit more. I'm not worried about my margins right now because I'll have to edit those off anyway. I will do here though. All right, so I think I have everything selected that I need to. I'm gonna actually select a little bit more of the donut here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this selection to apply a mask to my netting, and that's gonna simulate stopping out before I etch. So I'm gonna select the mask tool, and I'm gonna hit Command I to invert. And now, if I turn this on, you can see that we have the soft ground mimicked in just these negative spaces. Now, pretty drastic, right? So let's say that this, what we're looking at is like an hour-long etch time, right? That's pretty heavy. Maybe we don't want it that heavy, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that instead of that, you know, we want like a 15-minute etch or something. We could approach this a few different ways. One, we could play with the opacity and lessen the opacity. That's one option. Another thing we could do is we could put an adjustment on there. Maybe we decide to play with brightness contrast. So I'm gonna do Option, put my mouse between the two layers, hold the Option key and click. So it's only for this layer, okay? And I'm gonna adjust my brightness and contrast here. Maybe I brighten it up. No. Lessen the contrast. Maybe I go darker. Yeah, maybe that looks kind of nice. And then maybe I play with the transparency of the layer. So those are things I could play with. I think one thing I want to do is play with the color of it. So another adjustment I'm going to do is black and white, which is here. And again, I'm going to go to my layers, and it's already adjusted to just this layer. So I think that that works out a lot better. Turn that off so I can see the background a little bit better. So then this is mimicking the soft ground that's happening in the background, okay? One other way I could address the transparency if I don't want to play with the opacity on the layer is if I look at the mask itself, if I know that black blocks and white reveals, then I can paint gray into these white spaces. So I could go to Select Color Range, and I'm gonna cancel there. I'm gonna use this tool and select the white instead, using the Magic Wand tool. And I'm gonna go Edit Fill. And I'm gonna pick color. And I'm gonna try just like a gray. I'm gonna hit OK. Now, so at this point, it should be semi-transparent. And it is. So we can see that if we go back through the history, So we went here, that was the opacity change. So we can go there, opacity change, and then the current opacity. So the thing that's cool about playing with the mask is that you can do things like, if you don't want it to be a solid uniform selection, you can go into the mask with your brush tool, and I can turn my softness on, and I can, this zoom is in my way, okay. Change the opacity of my brush and make some of it more visible. And then I could go to the black and make some of it less visible. Does that make sense, Clark?
Yeah.
So those are things you can play with. So again, this mask that we're using on Photoshop is mimicking a mask that you would use like painting or stop out before etching in the acid bath. And so we've got that layer, and then we've got that soft ground cardboard layer. So I like the idea of putting this soft ground cardboard layer. I don't think I'm really into the netting as much for like the idea of a completed image. I do really like the idea of this soft ground cardboard being inside of the toilet area. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to do the option click on the mask, and I'm going to use this selection as a guide here. And then I'm going to go to my soft ground cardboard layer, and I'm going to add a mask to that using, so what I did was I option clicked my mask. I used my magic wand to select something that I had previously selected with the, I had used the magnetic lasso tool. So instead of having to go back and select everything again, I just used my magic wand, so it was faster. Does that make sense, Clark?
Yeah.
So once I had that selected, then I selected the soft ground cardboard layer and I added a mask. And so I don't think I like this on everything, but I do like it on the toilet. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go mask out things selectively. So I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to take my magnetic lasso tool and start selectively, and then I'm going to take my brush with the white. Zoom keeps getting in the way of everything. Turn this all the way back up, make my brush smaller, and start masking. Am I on the right layer? Oh wait, wrong color, black. Then start masking stuff out. So I'm going to do this pretty quick and rough, so it's not going to be perfect. I would go back and work on this some more and refine it, but I just want to do this quickly. Brush, B for brush. Why are you not working with brush? I don't need that. Okay, there we go. So deselect. Let's try just brushing it by hand instead of selecting. So I could go through here. Now I've got 100% opacity on here, but I'm going to change it here in a second. All right, black block. I'm going to do this for the donut, I think. And I'm going to change it to like a gray. And then brush. That way. Oh, crapper. I did that wrong. So I'm going to use this, hold down the option key. There we go. Brush. Now we'll paint just the selection that I want to, because I don't want the background to get painted. And then we'll option click. So now this simulates a shorter etch time as opposed to a longer etch time. So yeah, I think this is going to be kind of a cool way to simulate soft ground. Again, I know we don't have access to etching and physically printing, but as long as you can get some sort of layers on the computer, whether you are scanning or photographing your tester print or objects that you've scanned onto the computer, you know, you really will be able to mimic the process pretty closely. And that's kind of the goal, is to make it look like a soft ground print as much as possible. So yeah, so we've got that there. Let's see here. I'm going to select, so again, all I'm doing right now is changing up my masking situation. So I'm going to select the side mask here, go back to my brush. I think I'm going to change, I'm going to make it lighter so that it is darker, if that makes sense. I know that seems a little counterintuitive. And then I'm going to go back to my brush. So you can select and mask, or you can just mask. Like right now, I'm just painting on here with the mask. So it's really kind of the effect that you're looking for. I generally will go softer with my brush when I'm masking, but that doesn't mean that's what you have to do. I don't like that. I'm gonna go darker. No, I'm gonna go lighter. I don't like that. This will lighten this up some. So I'm going to do just a little bit more, and then I'm going to call it done for the demo. Clark, did you have any questions about anything?
No. If I have to, I can watch the video if I need to. So.
Okay. I think one other thing I want to do with this mask, just to kind of show, I'm going to select the background here, and then I'm going to take the polygonal, hold down the Option key, and yeah, I think that'll work. So I've got all the black selected. Undo. I think what I want to do is have the texture just barely visible in the background, you know? So I'm going to do Edit, Fill, and instead of filling it with black, I'm going to fill it with like a super dark gray. Color. So instead of black, I'm going to go like really dark gray and hit OK and deselect and Option click and see if we can see it. And we can't really see it, so I'm going to go to select, reselect, and go to the mask again and do Edit, Fill again and change it to a little bit lighter of a gray for the masks. And see how you can see it just a little bit on the edges there, Clark?
Around the...
Right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I don't think I like it. I tried it and I don't like it. And the cool thing about Photoshop that's different than doing it etching is all you have to do is go back through your history and undo. That's the cooler thing about Photoshop compared to like physically doing it. And then if we turn the netting back on the background, we could see that. I'm going to go ahead and crop the image real quick, just so we can see. I'm going to turn that net off because it's making it hard for me to see. I'm going to get rid of this guide here. So I'm going to crop the image. Crop. And then I'm going to go to Image Canvas Size and change that to, let's see, 6 by, we'll change it, we'll just change it to 11 by 14 and hit OK. And then I'm going to go here so we can mimic and see what it looks like as a piece of paper, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to turn this guy back on. All right. That's that netting in the background, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn the opacity down on it. And I don't know how I feel about it. I think the thing I don't like about it is, I guess it's not awful. I don't know. I think it's just a lot going on because there's already like the skitter scatter stuff going on there. And I think I just like this being a little bit more visible there. So yeah, that's our finished piece. Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Clark?
Um, no, not yet. I'll text you and email you if I have to this weekend.
All right.
So, but
That's it then.